A very important match here for both players. As we said last round, Mize has been unstoppable so far this weekend.
And a win here is a lock for top 8. Even with a loss, it would take quite a string of losses for him to miss at this point.
It would. As the boss going to start off with a Monastery Swift Spear. Coming across here for 1 for Mize. He's going to just begin things with a Smoldering Marsh. Now, we saw Logan beat this match in round number 10 to kick off our day. It felt like game 1 was pretty poor. And then things get better after sideboard. Here's another Swift Spear here for Ross. He'll come across for 2. Mize going to fall down to 17. The land was a Windswept Heath. We'll head back Logan's way. I still feel that way, by the way, that I think the Tarkaret's pretty heavily favored in game 1.
Yeah, especially on the play, although it doesn't look like Ross has a great hand here. Lightning Berserker, Become Immense. It looks like he's going to have to fetch for a Cinderglade here, as he has no other lands in his hand and nothing to do with green mana just yet, so he has to get, more red mana. Not a great opening hand here for Ross, even though his start is fine.
Looking for a card like maybe Wild Slash this turn to clear the way for these Swift Spears. Both players going to shuffle and cut each other's deck.
Really, any spell is fine. Even Dragon Fodder, before combat, gets his Swift Spears up to 2/3, and then he's looking at a trade with the Heir of the Wilds.
Well, Tom going to reassess things here. Going to get an idea of what's on the board. I think he did draw a copy of Wild Slash for the turn. Doesn't mean he wants to cast it for sure, but it looks like he will play a Lightning Berserker. He's going to dash that. There's a slash. Come across here for 4. It's not going to dash the Berserker, just going to play it and pass the turn back.
And I like this play. Ross is jammed up on mana. He's missed his 3rd land drop. The Lightning Berserker doesn't have to be dashed. You can just cast it. And I don't like dashing cards when you're tight on mana.
And it'll give him something to sink the mana into for the following turns as well, as now we head back Mize's way.
Yeah, if he finds a spell to cast, that's great. And if he fails to do that, then he can dump all of his mana into the Berserker.
So Mize at 12 already, under the gun. Ross didn't have a land to play last turn, but that just means he has all spells. So that can be a little bit scary if you're Logan.
Logan's hand looks very land heavy.
Yeah, I see at least 2 copies of Windswept Heath. No, he's got to figure out if there's a way for him to work himself back into this game. He does have a copy of Jamoka's Command in hand. I think there's Nana Fence over there as well. He's going to sacrifice this fetch line. He's going to fall down to 11. I have a feeling Basic Plains on the way.
You can't play off curve this turn.
Yeah, there is a Plains. And now there is Heir of the Wilds.
Immediate pump.
Oh, excuse me. Warden. I apologize. An immediate pump. Pardon me. Atarka's Command, the draw, is at least in Tom's hand.
I mean, Atarka's Command is not a bad one here. Mize can still block the Lightning Berserker and get out from under it if that's the card he senses. But that's still 9 points of damage coming across. At that point, one creature that connects, even just another Atarka's Command, will close out the game. And Mize may not block the Lightning Berserker because it's the only creature on the table where Ross can simply trade with the Warden if he so decides. Part of the complexity of playing against Atarka Red is all the different tricks require different responses. It's not all the same thing. So
if you guess wrong, it's real bad news too.
Yeah.
Now with Tom attacking just like this, I think that Logan can deduce exactly what card it is.
Right, it has to be Atarka's Command.
Yeah.
And if it's Atarka's Command, Mize's hand is kind of forced here anyway.
Yep. Well, he's not going to block, it appears. I'm just going to get commanded.
So that's 9 total points of damage.
Mize is going to fall down to 2, and Tom will just pass the turn back. Now, Logan does have a copy of Jamoka's Command in hand, and perhaps that's what he's trying to set up here. But he's already at 2, and it's his 4th turn of the game.
Yeah, it's just hard for him to even just beat any spell just because of prowess triggers at this point.
Should be a land Logan wants to play. He's going to go with the Canopy Vista. That will enter the battlefield untapped because of the 2 basics.
And the problem is that, you know, Mize could try to bluff here a little bit by just representing that all he wants to do is pump the Warden up, but Ross has lethal just by sending these attackers in. Mize's hand is forced to do something now.
And Tom wasted no time attacking.
Whatever the trick is, Mize is going to have to do it right now, whether it's Dromoka's Command, a removal spell, or simply trying to get his Warden to level 2.
We'll see how Mize wants to block here and what kind of move he wants to make. But for Tom, I've seen this look before, just sitting there patiently.
Well, he knows that Mize has to act first, so there's nothing for Ross to do right now. Just send everything in and see if it's a trick or if it's just pumping the Warden and respond accordingly.
Looks like Logan's going to make his move on a Swift Spear with a 3/3 Warden. And predictably, Tom, after blocks are declared, is just going to say pass priority.
Yes.
And now, again, Logan, you have to make a move because you're taking lethal right now. And his move is just going to be to give it lifelink. And now there's Antarctica Command. And that's going to sure things up right there as Tom Ross is going to win game number 1 here over Logan Mize. Tarka Red very quickly up a game over Albs on aggro. Kind of the expected result in game number 1, but as we take a look at the sideboards here for both players, things do change quite a bit here for Mize with his 4 Pitiless Hordes, 2 Self-Inflicted Wounds, 2 Irrational Clerics, 2 Ultimate Price, a Murderous Cut, a Silk Wrap, another copy of Dromoka's Command, and 2 Hallowed Moonlights.
Yeah, the Irrational Cleric, Ultimate Price, Murderous Cut, and Silk Wrap are all excellent, and I think the Dromoka's Command is fine here as well, and I would expect those 6 or 7 cards to be coming in.
The other side of things here for Ross, 2 Den Protectors, 2 Fiery Impulse, 3 Rending Volley, 2 Chandra, Fire of Kaladesh, 2 Boiling Earth, a Vault Breaker, and then 3 copies of Roast.
So 3 copies of Roast definitely coming in this matchup, and given the fact that Mize has shown Heir of the Wilds, it's possible that Ross is going to want some more shocks. I can see cards like Chandra and Den Protector also coming in as they're generally good cards in games that are likely to go a little bit longer.
Well, those are the options there for both players. Right now, Tom Ross currently up a game over Logan Mize, so Mize will be on the play here for game number 2. Things do appear to get better for Logan after sideboard, so we'll see how game 2 does unfold. But for now, we're going to talk about regionals that is taking place on the SCG Tour in 2016. We have this fantastic playmat here for you. It's the Ascent of Aya. And one of the things to know about regionals coming in 2016 is one of the few tournaments actually where you can get Open Series points to qualify for the Players' Championship.
Yeah, you can head over to go.starcgames.com/regionals for more information. This playmat will be given out for free for the first 200 people who register for their regional championships. Will also come with an exclusive foil token. This is the Season 1 Regional Championships, February 6th in 2016. That's Pro Tour weekend, so if you're not qualified for the Pro Tour, head over to your nearest regional championship, try to get some Open Series points, some SCG points, and some cash.
Qualification for the Invitational, yes. Invitationals are going to be harder to qualify for on the SCG Tour next year. And then qualifying for the Players' Championship is going to be even more difficult as well, as points have been removed from Invitational qualifiers. So the way to get points, they're of course the main event. We do a stop on the SCG Tour. There'll be the Classics on day number 2. And then there's regionals, and that's it. So regionals, very important tournament.
It's not necessarily going to be harder because the same number of slots will be given out for the Players' Championship, but there's going to be fewer opportunities to get those points. So you're going to have to be going to those Open Series events. You're going to have to be playing in the Classics, and when states and regionals rolls around, if you're trying to qualify for the Invitational, trying to get to the Players' Championship, it would behoove you to seek out those events and play in them because there's only so many points to go around.
Game number 2 about to be underway here between Tom Ross and Logan Mize. Tom Ross up a game here, looking to add another top 8 to the resume. It's been mostly with red strategies for Tom, where you've seen a lot of his success, excuse me.
Well, aggressive strategies that have a pump spell / combo element have been his calling card now for 2 years in Standard, most notably with 2 invitational wins with Boss Sly last year, Modern with Infect, and Legacy Infect as well.
You got that Pro Tour top 8, and I know his constructed deck of choice was an aggressive Naya deck with Y on the Coddle there. As I played against his friend Jody Keith, and they were playing a very similar deck at that Pro Tour. Jody crushed me, by the way. It was pretty ugly. 7 Open Series top 8s with 2 wins, 4 Grand Prix top 8s, though surprisingly 3 of them are unlimited. Tom will be quick to tell you.
Oh yeah, he definitely has a reputation as a deck builder, and he is definitely a gutsy constructed player and has several good finishes, but when you look at his premier level success, a lot of it has come in limited.
For Logan, just such a fascinating run here this weekend. It was so important for him to have a big weekend. I don't get the opportunity to talk to Logan much, so I didn't even know if he was going to come. this weekend. I had a feeling he would because he was just on the outside looking in. But for him to come here and be 11-0 on the outside looking in, again, talking to Joe Lissette, he basically said, I think Logan, if he top 8s this thing, he's probably just good to go for the Players' Championship all of a sudden.
Well, my opinion, I've said this before, I think a finals appearance here and certainly a win would lock him up.
Yeah.
There's so much fuzziness if he falls in the top 4 or the top 8, and certainly with Tom Ross and Todd Anderson and Caleb Schur also making deep runs, there's a lot of balls in the air right now. It's hard to say for sure, but Logan has an opportunity to really cement himself for the Players' Championship this weekend, and he is so far making the most of that opportunity.
Yeah, with a win here, he'll lock up top 8. That's at least 10 Open Series points, $500, and an invite to our Season 4 Invitational, something he's already qualified for. So we'll certainly see him there. But it's that second place, that 25 Open Series points or 20 Open Series points. All of a sudden, he's probably going to Rono.
He goes to 10 from 10 to 5, roughly, with a win here. That's a huge swing.
A shambling vent is how he's going to start things. The both players going to keep their opener. Tom's going to sacrifice a wooded foothills, get a basic mountain for that Swift Spear, come across for 1 yet again. A very similar start to what we saw last game. Over to Logan we go. It's a windswept teeth and air of the wilds. And now we're going to go back to the boss. He'll draw a card.
Looks like he kept a somewhat land-heavy hand and has ripped off 2 lands to start things off here.
Yeah, I believe there are 5 lands over there. Become Immense and then the mystery card. We're going to head back over to Logan now.
It might sound extreme, but even at this point with Murderous Cut in Logan's hand, if this Swift Spear dies, that might just be it.
Yeah.
Once you have blocker plus removal spell available, there's not a whole lot Atarka Red can do to wiggle its way out of this spot.
And you've harped on that point quite a bit this weekend, but we've just seen the games play out that way as well.
Yeah. Atarka Red is extremely powerful and very explosive. It's also fragile. It doesn't have a lot of playback once it gets behind other than executing the combo. And when there's a blocker back, you have to initiate the action first. And when there's a removal spell available, you fail when they kill your creature. And that's just it.
Air of the Wild's going to come across here. And this is in response to the fetch. Logan is going to go after that Swift Spear with the Jamoka's command. That's going to work out just fine.
And that's a great window to do it there, because even if Ross has something like Titan Strength, you're still just trading. Death Touch creatures are very good against Atarka Red. It means that they need to have Temur Battle Rage or some other first strike effect to be able to profitably trade through your creatures.
And there's really no reason for Logan to be worried about a card like Wild Slash or Fire Impulse, because you'd imagine Tom just would have cast that to keep attacking.
Exactly.
So he's not going to play around those 1-mana removal spells. Abbot of Carol keep in Tom's hand now. He's going to sacrifice a Windswept Teeth. I think a Cinder Glade on the way. And there that is. That's a Heel Cutter. It's just going to be dashed. So not a great draw here from Tom this game.
No.
If that's your turn 3 play, not a Hordeling Outburst, Dragon Fodder, anything like that, not all that exciting. Here's Anafenza. Air of the Wild's going to come across for 4 because of Ferocious. We're going to head back Tom's way. The one thing that Logan is missing right now is a 4th land for that Siege Rhino.
Well, Goblin Heel Cutter is a good thing to have while you're flooding out, because it's a pretty reasonable way to try to punch something through and execute the combo when you're behind on the board. Logan either has to leave a lot of blockers back to prevent that from happening, or just incur the risk. So Heel Cutter is not a great turn 3 play for Ross, but given his circumstances with Become Immense in hand and flooding out a little bit, Heel Cutter just gives him a shot to get back in this game.
We're going to see him go to the Abbot. Top card, Dragon Fodder.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, I believe that's the card, maybe Roast, but one of those two cards is exactly what Tom was hoping to hit.
2 goblins on the way. That'll give him the ability to just do some chump blocking and buy some time.
Not only that, but you have a wide board and a heel cutter in your hand. He's got something going now.
Might as well draw. Again, Logan didn't have land number 4. He's got multiple copies of Vanna Fenza in hand, which of course aren't very helpful right now. We know he's got a Siege Rhino, and then the removal spell he's got is a Murderous Cut. And now what we might actually see is we might see Logan slow down.
Well, he might have to hang back with both, because he knows about the heel cutter. Hanging back with one doesn't do him any good.
Smoldering Marsh was the draw, but that's going to end the battlefield tapped. And Logan says, no way. Let's go.
Yeah, I think what Logan's trying to do here is basically attack for a bunch this turn, have Murderous Cut to prevent getting killed on the way back, untap and cast a Siege Rhino. Because of the heel cutter, trying to hang back on D is just too hard.
Well, now it's time for Ross to draw a card. Is there a way for him to get it done through a Murderous Cut? Seems pretty tough. There's a mountain. That's a heel cutter.
He doesn't even have lethal with Become Immense right now. He's 1 point short on the table. Become Immense is essentially worth 7 because there's a prowess trigger. 8, 9, 10 for the heel cutter. 11, 12 for the abbot. 13, 14 for the tokens. And this even assumes that Logan has nothing in hand, which seems unlikely. And we know he has Murderous Cut.
Yep. So for Tom, it's got to be a home run swing here and hope for the best. And I think Tom's draw for the turn was Titan Strength. So I believe that he can attempt to present lethal, but the cut is what screws it all up.
Exactly. Logan doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to use a removal spell. There's no risk of getting burned out except by something like a Target's Command, which Ross will definitely play before damage because there's so much damage involved when you're pumping your team. So Logan can just wait for the action to come to him and then kill something when Ross makes his move.
There's a Titan Strength.
Yeah, Logan just confirming that this is not lethal.
Yep. Den Protector is the card. That's going to stay on top for Tom. A bit of a staring contest, right? It's almost like Tom doesn't want to go for it, but I think Tom knows he needs to go for it.
Yeah, he knows this is a long shot here. You can see him shaking his head. He doesn't have a choice.
Yep. Yeah, there's Murderous Cut. And Tom knows that is going to take care of that. And now Logan will show a Siege Rhino, and that's going to get the job done. So Logan Mize is going to tie things up here against Tom Ross. Obs on aggro, Tarka Red getting ready here for game number 3. I want to give Logan some credit here. We've watched him a couple times already today and once yesterday. He's done a beautiful job of identifying when to get aggressive, when to hold back, when to cast spells, when to just activate Shambling Vent. It's been very impressive stuff this weekend.
It's hard to be too defensive with blockers against a Tarka Red because the combo powers through almost any reasonable set of blockers someone can have. So you do have to split the difference a little bit. You can't sit back on your heels the whole game. You do have to apply some pressure there. And I think Logan identified, I got him. If he takes this hit, Siege Rhino gets to kill him next turn. With a Murderous Cut in my hand, I realistically can't die on the way back. So instead of just hanging back on his heels there and trying to play defense, try to shorten the length of the game, and was able to do that successfully.
Sideboards are available. I don't think much is going to change. Logan's already shuffling up. Tom's just checking things out. He might change things since he's on the play here. But as they do shuffle, we are going to discuss the Star City Games newsletter. It is your source for Magic the Gathering news, and best of all, it's free to sign up for.
Great information here about the Open Series, a summary of the previous week's events with a selected match of the week for you to view, exclusive deck lists and advice from many of Star City Games' most popular columnists, an exclusive cardboard crack comic, and best of all, as Cedric mentioned, signing up is free over at starcitygames.com/newsletter.
For Logan Mize, number 10 on our Season 4 leaderboard. It's been an impressive run thus far, 11-0, looking to go 12-0. He wins this game against Tom. Top 8, number 7.
Well, on top of top 8, number 7, and a great position to be the top overall seed, he gets to give Tom Ross a second loss. And I'm sure he would be thrilled if he could be part of making sure that Tom Ross did not make the top 8 of this tournament. Also had an invitational top 8, 2014 in season 2.
Such a great run, such a great story here this weekend. Logan having to come here and put up this kind of run to get his name in the conversation for the Players' Championship 2 weeks away at the Open Series in Roanoke. And you see right here, for Todd and for Tom, 243, 237. And then as we go to page number 2, that's where you're going to find Eric Hawkins and Logan Mize. Logan, 229. You give him 10 points, that puts him at 239, and there might be more than that on the way.
Exactly. I mean, he's in a position right now to grab the first overall seed, and that's a very valuable thing.
Now, for some players, Eric Hawkins, Chris Anderson, they're playing in Premier IQs right now. So for Chris, it's really important for him to win one of them this weekend. That would bring him up to 228, keep his name in the conversation. Caleb Scherer still in the main event, still in top 8 contention, and for him, he's got a top 8.
Yes.
He has no choice.
Well, he has to win. I mean, Logan, with a finals appearance, even with a top 4, puts himself to be a heavy favorite to make the Players' Championship. I think Caleb needs to rip off a win here. That's how big his gap is.
Well, right now, it's a very important game between these two in Ross and Mize. Ross going to be on the play with the Tarka Red, so you always got to love that if you're the red deck. When you're playing against Obs on aggro, you're kind of being gifted a game because game 1 is so favorable for you. So a lot of times you're going to be on the play for game number 3, but you got to be able to take advantage of it.
And that's my philosophy with the matchup too. I expect to get game 1. I think that I'm a bit of an underdog in the post-board game when they're on the play. But with a good sideboard and being on the play, I'll take my game 3 chances.
Oh, boss going to take a look at the opener here.
Nothing
see if he likes it.
Nothing set in stone because Obs on aggro can sideboard into a pretty hateful deck against you, and their deck just has way more raw power than yours does. But on the balance, I'm very happy playing this matchup.
It's a Zergo. Both players going to keep 7. We'll see where Logan wants to start.
Last year, the assortment of red 1-drops was so good that this was like a 1 or 2 of in some of the lists.
It's silly to think of.
The well is dry.
Yeah.
And now you got to play 4 copies of this, even though the legend part of the card definitely comes up.
Here's an attack for 2. Maya's going to fall down to 18. Ross will sacrifice the Wooded Foothills. I think you might be searching for the basic forest now. Perhaps a face-up Den Protector.
Den Protector is good if the games go long, but keep in mind this deck's got a lot of pump spells, and Den Protector is a fine way to evade the blocker scenario you're so worried about. This is a great creature to pump.
And this is an aspect of the deck that doesn't come up a ton because when you think of Den Protector, you think of basically Eternal Witness, a regrowth effect. But, you know, with Titan Strength become immense, this just becomes an unblockable threat, which is something that's great against Siege Rhino and Anafenza.
You see this card face up in times of desperation or against decks that are extremely fast. This card is a reasonable 2-drop for a deck like a Tarka Red. The morphing part is a bonus for sure, but this is not a bad on-curve play.
Logan going to sacrifice a Windswept Heath, and he's going to play a Den Protector face-up. As there appears to be some blocking to be done. Ross does have a copy of Wild Slash in hand.
It's kind of opening that a Tarka Red wants to have. Get on the board early, kill the first couple of plays, and try to assemble the combo to finish out once they produce a blocker that's too big for you to kill.
But here's a bit of the trade-off. By playing the Den Protector to search of a basic forest, he obviously wishes that was a Cinderglade because now he's jammed up a little bit. The basic forest is not going to help him cast many of the spells in his deck.
Right, it helps you cast Become Immense, it helps you cast a Target's Command if that's still in the deck. But for a deck that has this many cheap red cards, having to search the forest is a real cost. Especially when you have Lightning Berserker. You can see Ross's hand right now. I think he's got a Swift Spear and a Wild Slash. That would be an incredible turn if he was allowed to have it, but with the forest, he can't do it.
And all I can do is slash, get in here for 4 points of damage. Mize is going to fall down to 12, pass the turn back. So if you're Tom, you're looking to rip off a fetch land or any land, really, because the forest is out of the deck, so any land will work now.
Exactly.
There's Anafenza. We'll go back to the boss. He'll draw. I don't think that was a land either. That was a Fiery Impulse. Now, he does have a Roast. He's going to fire that off. now kind of come across here again. And one of the things that Tom has wanted to do over this couple of turns that he's thought about is just casting Titan Strength to Scry.
I think he's going to Titan Strength on the upkeep. The first turn that Mize produces a blocker that he can't attack through. Now you can just put it on the Den Protector. Den Protector can't be blocked either. It's 5 power all of a sudden. If Ross has another roast in hand, that's fine. Just untap and roast. But if he doesn't have an answer for the Siege Rhino, he's got to do some of the workarounds here.
He'll just take a draw step. Mountains the draw. We'll see how that changes things.
If Ross wanted to take a draw here rather than Titan Strength on the upkeep, this third land has to do a lot of work for him.
He does have a copy of Fiery Impulse in hand. And you can see how important this match is. We don't normally see Tom get like this.
Well, and your margin for error against Abzan is 0, because once they shut the door, you can't get back into the game.
Yep.
And it's an incredible risk to allow Mize to untap with the Siege Rhino. So Ross may be willing to make it kind of an awkward play here if it means getting the Siege Rhino off the table. For example, he could Titan Strength the Den Protector, attack with both. You assume that Mize will block the Zergo with the Siege Rhino because he can't take that hit as well. And then you can Fire Impulse after the fact and get it off the table. Also, Ross can simply attack and Titan Strength the one that gets blocked. He'll lose his Den Protector in that scenario, but he keeps the Fiery Impulse back. So he can work around it. It's just he's got to figure out what's the best use of my resources and how do I expect Mize to block in each of the different scenarios I can produce.
And that's so hard, too, because I think what Tom wants to do this turn is he wants to play Monastery Swift Spear, Mountain, and then attack with all of his creatures, and then it's a decision of if he wants to use Impulse or Titan Strength. Because Siege Rhino, it appears, is going to get the block.
Yeah.
And that means he's going to get to eat something. So you're going to have to trade 2 of your resources for 1 of Logan's, but that means the Siege Rhino's off the table. So here's a Swift Spear, here's the attack. 3 cards in the graveyard, which means Become Immense is off the table. And that's what Logan might be asking about. But you can see the cost of having to search up the forest on that turn.
Stunted a lot of his development.
Yeah.
Now, it's worth it. The Den Protector did a lot of work. But yeah, you would definitely prefer for you to be able to fetch the Mountain on 2 and the Cinderglade on 3. It's typically the better way to do it.
If you're on Logan's side here, I think what's interesting too is what's the most dangerous of the threats? I think Zergo, least dangerous. Den Protector, you leave that around, you're looking at a threat that might be unblockable. And then Swift Spear, that can obviously add to a lot of damage.
It's definitely the Den Protector because Den Protector is the one threat where you cannot tap out for another creature with the expectation of being able to block it. With the other creatures, worst case scenario, maybe your Siege Rhino is chumping something because of Become Immense, but you at least get the opportunity to block. If you let the Den Protector stick around, you may have no choice, depending on what Ross's hand looks like.
Now here's my question for you. Are you Fiery Impulsing or Titan Strengthing?
Fiery Impulse.
Okay.
Titan Strength just helps much more the next turn if there's another large blocker.
Okay.
It's also a Lava Spike.
Sure.
And I would rather have a Lava Spike in the hand with Logan at 7 and it looking like Ross, it's going to be tight whether or not Ross can get the last few points across.
Murderous Cut the draw here for Logan. It's going to be a 1-mana removal spell in this game.
I think he might have worked his way into Murderous Cut plus Siege Rhino.
That's the dream.
That's the spot that's really hard to beat.
Ross is going to untap. He'll draw a card here. There are some big draws available for Tom in this situation. But Logan is set up beautifully right now at 10 life.
Ross still has a shot this game if he has a roast, but he needs to be able to kill the Siege Rhino essentially before his pump spells become live cards again. Or he might go for broke here with pump spells trying to get the Rhino off the table, but then the Murderous Cut's going to blow him up.
Dragon Fodder. He'll attack. And this is what you've spoke about this so many times. And you're understanding the matchup is so impressive. It's just, if they're able to do something like this, which is a blocker plus Murderous Cut.
Yep.
Blocker plus Dromoka's Command, something like that. It's so hard for Ross to be able to overcome, or any Atarka Red player.
Sometimes with Dromoka's Command or some of the other damage-based ones, it's possible for them to get sloppy enough where you can play over the top. But cards like Murderous Cut and Ultimate Price, they always work. There's no way to play around this.
There's no scry here for Tom. Logan's going to end up taking 1 from the fetch land, then 2 from the Zergo, so he's going to fall down to 7. But 7 in this situation is quite a bit. And what I'm going to be curious to see is when Logan untaps and takes his turn, how aggressive he wants to get with the Rhino.
Well, you know, at 7, Become Immense can still kill him. You can still go wide here, potentially. So Logan's not quite out of the woods. If he draws one more removal spell, and it looks like he has Dromoka's Command, that might be too much, but it's possible Logan needs to hang back on defense because he can't afford to race. And Shambling Vent's a huge draw.
Yep.
Now, Logan next turn can hang back with the Siege Rhino and leave up Dromoka's Command and start pressuring and gaining some life back.
The Dromoka's Command is so good in this spot too because it's going to do a nice job of countering Roast or something that Tom might peel in a situation like this to get him back in the game. And he actually drew Roast for the turn. So he's got to try this. I think if you're Logan, we're probably going +1/+1 mode, maybe?
I think that I prefer prevent damage and fight a token.
Okay.
I think is my preference. Because if you fight a token, you don't have to worry about Titan Strength playing over the top.
Sure.
Every creature is basically the same thing right now because it's either lethal with Become Immense or an irrelevant card. And Ross might have another copy of Zurgo in his hand anyway.
Well, Logan's play might be better than the ones we're advertising here, which is he's going to prevent the damage on Roast, activate Shambling Vet, and have that fight a token.
That's even better. But it's the same. It's essentially the same line. He picks up 2 life for his trouble.
The draw here for Logan, I think, may have been Den Protector. And this is another thing that you spoke of, is the power level of this deck is so high with Abzan aggro that once you start getting a situation like this where it's, all right, let's play draw for draw.
Yep.
Let's see whose draws are better as we're working our way into the late game. It's Abzan aggro by so much it's a joke.
And even now with Logan with land number 7, it's fine. And land number 7 lets him, you know, leave up Den Protector, play Den Protector down, leave it up and have the option to get back something like Dromoka's Command or Murderous Cut should the need arise.
And Ross, if not, get back a Rhino.
If Ross draws land number 4, it's a dead card.
Yep. Over to Tom we go. The outs that Tom has here are very limited. Mize at 8, Ross at 13. And all he can do is pass the turn back now. Mize gonna un-Megamorph Den Protector. It'll get a +1/+1 counter. We'll see what he wants to return. The options are plentiful down there. Dromoka's Command, Murderous Cut, and a Rhino.
I think Dromoka's Command is probably the safest of the cards to get because it's a removal spell the same way, except that it also means that Mize doesn't have to worry if something like Roast is drawn. If he takes Murderous Cut, Ross untaps and draws a Roast for the Rhino, now it's, all right, I gotta hang back on defense, kind of, or it's a little awkward. Dromoka's Command is so flexible that it's a much safer card to get.
And what I like here is Logan has now decided I'm gonna start shifting gears. I want to try to get this one over with now.
Yeah, the only question is if he can afford to send in the Rhino as well.
It looks like the answer might be yes.
It's very close. Definitely Den Protector and Shambling Vet are safe attacks.
And Logan's draw for the turn was a Murderous Cut, so I can't imagine Tom getting back into it now.
He's Ross. There's no getting back to the game at this point.
Logan's attack may have felt a little bit conservative, but when you have 2 removal spells of that quality in hand and can cast them both, there's no reason to take any risks.
Yep.
It's 8-10 right now in favor of Mize. Shambling Vent doing some nice work here. Backup Zurgo in Tom Ross's hand, certainly not going to help. And it becomes even more difficult too because if you're in a Tarka Red player and you know your opponent has Dromoka's Command, what can you really do? Yeah. This is a snap block if there's ever been one. Swift Spear is the backup. It's a big reason that Abzan aggro is the most played deck here on day 2. There's Murderous Cut. Gonna take care of the Swift Spear here. And with Tom having just a red and a green mana available, I think we might see Logan just try to go for the W here.
Well, this is just lethal. I mean, he can fight down the token and get a +1/+1 counter, and then just come across for 10.
Yeah, the only real concern I think that Logan has here is if Tom has a defensive become immense.
Sure.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I mean, Mize can play it safe because if Ross has nothing, then it just doesn't matter. Next turn he's locked. But he could have theoretically gone for the kill this turn, but Mize is so far ahead that there's no reason to take any risks.
There's no punishment, right? Here's a Tarkus command. And that is going to do it. Logan Mize is going to win this match here over Tom Ross, 2-1. Obs on aggro going to take care of a Tarka red. And for Logan, it's a 12-0 start, and he is our first player locked in the top 8. And getting a buddy over there, a little fist bump action.
Yeah, and he's got to distribute some valuable losses along the way, too, to now Todd Anderson and Tom Ross.
Caleb Scherer yesterday, too.
Lot for top 8, still going to battle it out, I'm sure, try to get that #1 overall seed. And now really for him, he's just crossing his fingers and hoping that those players that are around him in the standings, like Tom Ross, Todd Anderson, and Caleb Scherer, don't make the top 8. He's done all the work he can do. He's 12-0, and he's given out some valuable losses along the way. And now he just kind of sits back and hopes that the rest of the tournament breaks well for him.
All you can do is beat the people that they put in front of you.
Exactly.
He's done that every single time.